What's up, my dudes? The feud continues, boys. Oh, man. Okay, so this thing between Malcolm Stewart and Jason Anderson has continued into Daytona of 2022 Supercross. So I know right off the bat, a lot of you guys are going to be saying shit like, well, good on you, Malcolm Stewart. That's what you get, Jason Anderson. You know, Jason Anderson just took out Malcolm Stewart in the last main event, so that was just payback. That's just, that's just all good. Well, I think some of you guys are severely forgetting about the fact that Malcolm Stewart took out Jason Anderson earlier in the season. I'm talking like at Anaheim 1. I'm pretty sure it was in a heat race. You know, that same round that Justin Barcia took out Jason Anderson. It was that same round, same corner, but in one of the, I'm pretty sure it was in one of the heat races, right? Malcolm Stewart just ran it up in there, took out Jason Anderson. So I think some people are forgetting about that little incident when they want to talk about, acting as if Jason Anderson is just this, the main, like, aggressor to all of this, and he's the one starting all of this and all that, bruh. You better be careful saying shit like that, because I even think this feud goes back further than just this season, I think these boys have been going back and forth even years in the past. So there really is no original aggressor or, the guy that's kind of, let me try to figure out the word I'm looking for here. What is that word? Come on, Smithy boy. Make that team fried brain work, buddy. Come on now. And it's not aggressor. Instigator. That's the word I was looking for. A lot of people want to act as if, Jason Anderson is the big instigator in this situation. He's starting all this up, and he's the one that's trying to go at Malcolm Stewart, so then Malcolm Stewart's just defending himself. No, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Total, unequivocal, 100% bullshit. Both of them are just as much to blame. Both of them have been aggressive to each other. Both of them have taken each other out many times before. Okay? So that's just something people need to stop with this, like, well, that's just what Anderson gets, dude. Anderson's the only one that's doing anything wrong here. People need to stop that shit. They're both doing it. They're both aggressive riders. But one thing I will say is, at this point, it does really seem to me like that Malcolm Stewart is not racing forward anymore. He is so caught up in this beef that he's having with Jason Anderson. I swear to God, it's like Malcolm Stewart is not even trying to race forward anymore. It's as if Malcolm Stewart's more concerned about taking out Jason Anderson or, getting mad at Jason Anderson than he is trying to win the race or get points or do anything like that. And that's basically what happened in this Daytona race. So what happened here was they went around the first corner, right? Anderson was kind of towards what would be the inside of the second corner that they went into. They haven't really shown a whole lot of this after this Daytona race that I've seen, by the way. They seem to just show the when Malcolm Stewart kind of ran into the back of Anderson in the sand and took him down. But there was kind of a moment there before that in the corner before where Anderson was up the inside. Malcolm Stewart was going pretty fast down the middle, okay? Cooper Webb was in the front. And they get into that corner. They get into that, second corner there. Anderson's basically just going where he goes up the inside. That's basically where he already is on the track. Tomac's in between Anderson and Malcolm Stewart in the corner. So technically, Anderson and Malcolm Stewart never even touched in that corner. They actually sandwiched Tomac in that corner. Oh, man. So it's like Jason Anderson kind of bumped into Tomac, and then Tomac kind of bumped into Malcolm Stewart, and then Malcolm Stewart got bumped off of the track. And then in that very next corner, that's where then Malcolm Stewart just basically went straight over in that sand corner, straight into what really was the back of Jason Anderson's bike. Malcolm Stewart had zero intention of turning in the sand, just went directly straight into the back of Jason Anderson and took him down. And at the end of the day, it's like, Malcolm, dog, like, you're not racing forward anymore. No matter what kind of little scuffle or collision moment these boys have, one thing I can say about Jason Anderson is it seems like he's racing forward. He's trying to, no matter if he runs into Malcolm Stewart or whatever, he's trying to pick his bike back up and go forward. You know, did you notice in this crash here where Malcolm Stewart took out Jason Anderson? Do you notice how when Jason Anderson got back up, he wasn't worried about pushing Malcolm Stewart back down on the ground or trying to fuck with Malcolm Stewart when they were getting back up. He was just worried about getting back on his bike and going. That was not how it was last week when Anderson took down Malcolm Stewart. Malcolm Stewart was trying to get back up and push Anderson down and push Anderson out of the way and do all this other shit after they had already crashed. That's what I mean by it really seems like Malcolm Stewart is more focused about the damn feud that they're having than actually getting back up and doing good in the race. Okay? And that's the thing you got to understand, that it's like, even when Jason Anderson technically took down Malcolm Stewart last week, he was still trying to race forward. He was still trying to go forward. You could tell that was not just this intentional takeout on Malcolm Stewart. But this shit at Daytona, where Malcolm Stewart just runs into the, basically T-bones the back half of Jason Anderson's bike in that sand corner, purposely trying to take him down. I don't know if Malcolm Stewart was trying to do payback from last week, or if, Malcolm Stewart thought that Anderson basically hit him in that corner before again there at Daytona. I don't know what the deal was there, but, if you go back and look at that, Anderson never even really made contact with Anderson at Daytona. He made contact with Tomac, and then Tomac kind of made contact with Malcolm Stewart, but Anderson didn't really make any contact with Malcolm Stewart. So, if Malcolm Stewart was pissed off about what happened in that second corner moment, I don't understand that at all, because Malcolm Stewart basically stopped in that corner. That second corner at Daytona, he basically stopped in the corner. Like, I know a lot of people talked about, Malcolm Stewart kind of looking like he turned down in that corner last week when Anderson just happened to be up the inside and they both went down. It does kind of seem to me like Malcolm Stewart does have a little bit of an issue with cutting down in the corner, in the sense of he makes it look like he's going way up here, but then he'll almost stop in the corner and then turn down like this right here. That's about what he did in this Daytona race. He was coming up here really fast. He got up in the corner, like right up in here, and then he just about damn near stopped and then turned the bike down really sharp, and then Tomac was just there on the inside, and then Anderson was just there further to the inside. So we are seeming to see a bit of this trend of Malcolm Stewart cutting down in the corners. Again, I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying, especially if you try to cut down in a corner on the very first lap of a 450 main event at Daytona, yes, there is going to be bikes on the inside of you, Malcolm Stewart. I don't know what the hell you think's going to happen out of that, but yeah, it wasn't just Jason Anderson up the inside of you. It was Tomac up the inside of you. Everybody had to slam on their brakes to try to avoid hitting Malcolm Stewart in that corner because of how much he slowed down and tried to cut the bike down. If you look at Webb in that corner, Webb was the one that was actually in the front. He actually carried his bike around that corner a little bit. Webb kind of did more of like this number right here. He kind of like rode the bike around the corner a little bit more instead of just stopping at the apex and trying to cut the bike down. I don't know what Malcolm Stewart's doing with that, but especially if you do that at the early moments of a race, like, you just have to expect people to be up the inside of you, dude. You can't come up in here, stop in the corner, and then turn down. You can't do that on the first few laps of Daytona, or you're going to get hit. So I don't blame Jason Anderson at all in the slightest way for what happened in that, like, Anderson-Tomac sandwich, you know, that Anderson-Tomac-Malcolm Stewart sandwich that happened, but nonetheless, that kind of bumped Malcolm Stewart off the track, so maybe, I feel like that's kind of what got him heated. And then when he saw Jason Anderson in front of him, he was like, oh, fuck it, dude, I'm taking this guy out, because he probably thought that Jason Anderson was like the main aggressor, even in what bumped Malcolm Stewart off of the track at Daytona. But, like, Malcolm Stewart's getting too into this shit. You know what I mean? Malcolm Stewart is just getting too into this feud. All it's doing is hurting the both of them at this point. That's what, when it comes down to the end of the day, Jason Anderson has taken out Malcolm Stewart. Malcolm Stewart's taken out Jason Anderson. Malcolm Stewart took out Jason Anderson earlier in the season. Malcolm Stewart pushed down Jason Anderson away from his bike after Anderson took out Malcolm Stewart last week. I mean, they're going back and forth, but at the end of the day, what I can say about this situation is it still seems to me like no matter what happens, Jason Anderson is racing forward. He's trying to get back up and finish the race. He's just trying to get a good result in the race. Is he aggressive? Is he super aggressive? Is he over aggressive at times? Yes. But Malcolm Stewart is the exact same way. But it doesn't seem like Malcolm Stewart is focused on the race anymore. It doesn't seem like Malcolm Stewart is focused on going forward anymore. Malcolm Stewart really is the one that is getting caught up in this beef and caught up in this feud to the point to where it's costing the both of them at this point. That's what I can say at the end of the day, right? Like, Jason Anderson got taken out by Malcolm Stewart here at Daytona. He didn't even hardly look at Malcolm Stewart. He was 100% focused on just getting back on his bike and going. And even when Malcolm Stewart got taken out last week, quote unquote, even though Malcolm Stewart did a very similar thing last week in that corner, I don't think it was quite as bad last week as far as cutting down in the corner, but still, nonetheless, Malcolm Stewart does seem to have this trend where he will go up at the apex of the corner like this, and instead of, carrying the bike around the corner, like gliding the bike around the corner, he will really try to cut the bike down. Now, I'm telling you guys, I challenge you boys to especially go back and look at that corner before Malcolm Stewart took out Anderson here at Daytona, where they sandwiched up with Tomac. I want you boys to go in there and look at how much more Malcolm Stewart slowed down in the corner and tried to cut the bike down in the corner than, for instance, like Cooper Webb did in front of him in that corner. It's like, I'm getting a little bit confused at what Malcolm's doing with that, but still at the end of the day, like, okay, Tomac was in the middle of the Anderson and Malcolm collision in that second corner. He was in the middle of it, and then Tomac went on to win the main event. So, just imagine that, right? Had Malcolm not just ran right into the back of Jason Anderson in that corner after that, dude, it would have been a battle to the finish. It would have been amazing. Could you imagine watching Anderson and Tomac go at it on Daytona? Yeah, that would have been really cool to see, but Malcolm Stewart is still so caught up in this beef that he can't get over it. He literally can't get over it. Anytime that he sees Jason Anderson in his sights, he is going to go for a purposeful, intentional, premeditated takeout on Jason Anderson. Period. And again, I'm not saying anybody should get protested or docked or suspended or anything like that. But all that really did was just took out not only Jason Anderson, but also Malcolm Stewart from even having a chance of winning this main event at Daytona. Like, that's what I'm saying. Malcolm Stewart is not even racing forward anymore. You boys can sit here and talk about, well, Malcolm Stewart's just paying back Jason Anderson, blah, blah, blah. But the reality of all of that is they have a feud that is going on much further than what Jason Anderson did last week. Like I say, Malcolm Stewart took out Jason Anderson earlier in the season. So you can miss me with all that bullshit about, well, Malcolm Stewart's just paying back Jason Anderson. He needs to fucking race forward. Malcolm Stewart had a good chance of potentially winning this Daytona race. He looked really good in his heat race. He looked really good in qualifying. And with his own premeditated getting so mad at Jason Anderson, all that really resulted in was Malcolm Stewart took himself out of being able to potentially win this Daytona race or get good points in this Daytona race. He did it to himself. He did it to himself. Period. So that's what I'm saying by, I really don't believe last week that Jason Anderson running into Malcolm Stewart was like an intentional, premeditated, let me try to pay back Malcolm Stewart. But I do feel like at Daytona, when Malcolm Stewart took out Jason Anderson, I do feel like that was a premeditated, okay, now I'm just going to pay you back. All right? Whereas I don't feel like Jason Anderson was doing that last week. I feel like Anderson was just trying to race forward, get to the front, and win that main event at the Triple Crown race. And Malcolm Stewart basically just happened to be right there when he was trying to do it. You see the difference we have going on here? I feel like now Malcolm Stewart doing this takeout on Anderson, he ran into the back of his bike. He didn't even really it wasn't like Anderson, was far enough back into that corner to where Malcolm Stewart could just run into the side of Anderson. It was literally more like Malcolm Stewart ran his bike straight into the back of Jason Anderson's bike when they were going through that corner. So, I mean, it's just like, come on now, Malcolm. Come on now, bro. I mean, shit, it's the first lap, the first couple corners of the Daytona main event. Okay? Jason Anderson didn't even take you out in that corner before. Okay? And you also cut down and stopped in that corner before, and you wonder why you got bumped off of the track. Okay? You didn't just caused Jason Anderson to have to slow up to the inside. You also caused Eli Tomac to have to really slow up on the inside of that corner. It's just like, what is Malcolm doing at this point? I mean, I get it, he's pissed off about what happened last week, but that's not even where this feud started. That's what I'm saying. A lot of you boys are missing that entire critical information about this entire story. All of you boys that think this shit started last week, you need to rethink your shit, dude. This has been going on for a while now. So, at the end of the day, all you can really look at is who is trying to race forward, who is getting the most caught up in this beef, and who's not. And that's all it really comes down to at the end of the day. I feel like Malcolm Stewart is the one that's really getting so emotional about this beef. He's getting way too into it. He's more worried about taking out Jason Anderson than he is winning the fucking main event at this point. You know what I mean? That's the problem I'm having right now with Malcolm Stewart. And I'm a firm believer in you can race however you want to. You can pay people back. You can do whatever you want to do. But if you're going to go in there and pay somebody back on the third fucking corner at Daytona, you had better be wicked fucking fast because you're not even going to be able to catch back up if you do that. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, I get it, paying somebody back and all that. I totally understand all of that. I totally understand why you would want to do that and everything like that. But again, Malcolm Stewart was the culprit of taking down Jason Anderson earlier in the season. Malcolm Stewart pushed down Jason Anderson after they crashed last week. Typically, AMA normally gives out some sort of suspension or dock position or probation or something. A lot of times, AMA doesn't really like it when you try to get in a physical, altercation after the whatever crash happened on the track. So Malcolm Stewart should be fucking thankful that AMA didn't do anything about him pushing down Jason Anderson last week after they crashed. And then he goes in here the very next weekend, and it's 100% intentional, premeditated, runs the front of his bike into the back of Jason Anderson in a corner. Malcolm Stewart had zero intention of turning his bike in that corner at all. You can look at the front fender. He just went directly into the side of Jason Anderson to purposely take him down. So, I feel like Malcolm Stewart at this point, dude, you're going to have to let that shit rest. Put that shit down, dude. All you're doing is costing yourself. That is all you're doing. That's all you're doing. So, shit, guys. Definitely let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, but I think it's starting to get to this point where I can put more of the blame on Malcolm Stewart at this point, because like I say, he's just not racing forward anymore.